We're very, very delighted that you've joined us today for the webinar on the peer learning bubble. Hang on a second, there we go. So essentially what we're going to be taking you through today is reflections on applying the peer learning bubble model with voluntary sector social work students in Northern Ireland. So, Caoimhe, can you do the slides? Can you switch the slide over? So we are the dream team, the peer learning bubble dream team. So there's myself, my name's Dr Denise MacDermott. I am senior lecturer and subject lead for social work at Ulster University. And Caoimhe, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, it's lovely to see so many familiar faces today, so thank you for joining us. My name's Caoimhe Harkin-MacDermott. I'm from Bryson Care, and my role within Bryson Care is Assistant Director for Social Work Services. So I'm going to give a shout out to Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann, as we're delighted that they're here. If you just want to pop in and say hello and introduce yourself quickly.
Hi, my name is Rachel McCluskey. I'm a social work student at Ulster University, and I'll be going into final year now.
Thank you, Rachel. Good to see you. Emma?
Afternoon, guys. I'm Emma McAllister, and I am also studying social work, and I'm just about to go into my final year in September.
Thank you, Emma. And finally, Leslie Ann?
Hey, my name's Leslie Ann Beckett. I am a social work student in year 2 with OU, and looking forward to getting the year finished.
Yay!
Brilliant, thank you, Leslie Ann, and we're really delighted to have Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann with us as well, and you'll hear from them a wee bit later on within our presentation. So I'm going to pass you back over to Denise.
Brilliant. So essentially, the outline for today's session, you can see there on the slide, it's going to focus on voluntary sector placement settings, and it'll include feedback from the students, Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann, because that's where the depth in all of this is. When you're hearing the real lived experience of students as they have participated on the model and their honest reflections on that. The peer learning bubble model has 4 domains: support, learn, participate and develop, and Caoimhe is going to take you through each of those so we can set it into context, and then the outcome of all this will be at the end of the webinar. You'll be coming away from this session feeling enthused, going to enjoy the sunshine, but also you'll have a better understanding of the model and essentially how it can be used to enhance learning, to provide support and to promote development and social work placements. And as we see it as well, the potential value and scope for the model to be used for newly qualified social workers to support and facilitate their learning in their assessed year and employment. So as Alison had said at the start of the session, we'll be monitoring the chat box, so do make use of that as we work our way through the sessions. And we want it to be interactive as well. So at various points, you'll be whisked away to a virtual breakout room for around 6 or 7 minutes, so that you can discuss the different ideas that we're presenting and give us your feedback as well. And above all else, we really hope that you enjoy the session, and thank you for giving us your time today. So I'll hand over now to myself again. I'll hand back over to myself to talk some more. Anybody that knows me knows I'm no stranger to storytelling. So before Caoimhe goes through the 4 domains, just a brief context piece in relation to the origins of the model. In 2020, Caoimhe and I did a small-scale evaluation with trainee practice teachers, and one of the things that had come up at that time, we were all scrambling to learn new ways of working, and it was rapid change and rapid adoption to get things moving, particularly within social work education and indeed practice. And through that, one of the respondents had just asked the question, is there another way we could do things? So that set the wheels in motion of the first iteration of the model, which anyone who has read the journal article will see. It was a bit of a word diagram. So subsequent to that, we received money from Ulster University Impact Fund to look then at making the infographic so that then we could take the learning out and share that. So the model was designed in response to the uncertain landscape in the first wave in 2020, which seems so long ago now. And it's essentially a hybrid model for social work placements. And as I said at the introduction, we also see there's potential and scope for this as well for newly qualified social workers. Coronavirus has impacted the ways in which social work education is delivered. It impacted how placements were delivered. But through all that as well, there was opportunities for alternative and creative ways of delivering professional education in Northern Ireland. So this is our model. So I'll hand over to Caoimhe and she's going to take you through the 4 domains.
Thank you, Denise. So as you'll see on the slide there, this is our peer learning bubble model. It's a really nice infographic, colourful and very, very vibrant. So today I'm going to talk you through on how we've used this with social work students, but we also use it with qualified practice teachers and candidates doing their SSY year in employment within the voluntary sector. So as Denise has mentioned, the peer learning bubble model has 4 domains. So the first one is support, then learn, participate and develop. Our model represents learning and development and also consolidates social work knowledge of theories, models and practices as well. This model can be used very flexible, but also can be facilitated very interchangeably with practice teachers, students, and also all our social work practitioners as well. We're very proud of our peer learning bubble model, and also this model aligns to the learning improvement strategy for social workers and social care workers 2017 to 2027. And within Bryson Practice Learning Centre, we've bedded down a blended approach for practice learning for social workers, for social work students on placement. And really our blended approach aligns with the strategic point 6 of this strategy, particularly for practicing in a digital world, which is really key now for social work practice as well post the COVID-19 pandemic. So within Bryson Practice Learning Centre, we have applied the peer learning bubble model to students from both the UGR and the RGR route from across the 3 universities of Ulster, Queen's and the Open University. And it's great that Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann are here today to share their experience of being involved in the small peer learning bubble groups as well. And you'll hear more from the 3 students later on in the webinar. So how do we apply the peer learning bubble model within the Practice Learning Centre? So when we're applying this, we split the peer learning bubble sessions into small groups of students, between 4 to 5 students maximum. And student feedback really echoes the positivity of having the small bubbles and engaging that with their peers. The groups are mixed with from students with right across the different units. So one group won't be all Ulster, one group won't be all Queen's, and the same for OU. The bubble sessions are mixed with students from each of the universities, and from collecting feedback from students who've been involved in the peer learning bubble groups, really, I suppose, feedback that being mixed with students from the different universities really adds to the learning and provides additional support as well, which is really what the peer learning bubble is all about as well. And I suppose when we look back there in January when students started, particularly within Bryson Care Practice Learning Centre, we would usually have low numbers of level 2 students coming through at that time. We'd be very much providing a lot of level 3 placements, but we do see increasing of level 2 students coming through at that time from RGR and from the Open University. We really wanted to provide that additional support. So what we decided to do there in January was have a peer learning bubble really for level 2 students, again having 45 students within that, because they're on the same journey, the same experience of completing the first level placement. So we put those students all in the one peer learning bubble, really to add to their learning so they can avail of that peer support as well. And again, the feedback has been really positive. They have peers that are going through the same journey at the same stage of their learning was really positive. So looking at how we deliver our peer learning bubble sessions, well, initially we start off fortnightly within the small groups, and then they usually would run from 1 to 2 hours maximum, and that really depends on what we're looking at or what we're exploring within the peer learning bubble groups as well. And we review that with the students as well to see what's working, what's not, and really it's very inclusive of that student experience and getting feedback from students and how we move that forward for the duration of the placement. So I'm going to go through now each of the domains and explain how we use that within the Practice Learning Centre. So the first domain is support. And I suppose that the main focus of this domain is really to create and provide a safe environment for social work students to have ongoing peer support throughout the length of their placement. It's also an opportunity for students to check in with each other, to see how things are going, what they like about their placement, what are they not, but also to talk about their experience and share those experiences. But it's also an opportunity to alleviate any worries or pressures or fears that they may have as well with their peers that are on the same journey as them, albeit in very different social work placements across the voluntary sector. The ethos of this model is to create a sense of belonging, and that's what the peer learning bubble model does. It creates that community of practice online, and that's really important to be able to provide that additional support for students on their placement as well. We feel from this model, online support, the online community support is important for students, given the demands and the pressures and challenges that students can experience through the duration of their placement. As we know, it can be a very daunting time for students, and particularly within the voluntary sector, if they're the only student within that organisation or maybe a small organisation. So the peer learning bubble model really provides that additional support for those students who are, in a sense, the only social work student within that organisation or team. So it's really important to provide that peer support as well. But more importantly, what we're hearing from the students and what we're seeing, the development of friendships, and that's really important. And they are friendships that students are taken through onto their next placement, or indeed as they progress into their AYE. And you'll get a sense of that from the students as well. But within the support domain, there's a real sense that students are sharing resources, they're sharing learning, and this is really adding to their learning experience on placement, whether it be their level 2 or indeed their final placement as well. But particularly within this domain, every peer learning bubble session is facilitated by a qualified practice teacher. So that is additional support to students that are on their own placement, and it might not necessarily be a practice teacher that the students are working with on to one-to-one basis. So again, we're sharing experience, sharing knowledge from different practice teachers who are working right across the voluntary sector as well. So it's that additional support that's adding to the student experience and adding to that learning and development as students progress through placement. But also then it's also capturing through the support domain, particularly in relation to the evidence matrix and around identifying with students and working with students, that the evidence matrix is a fluid document. Again, it's being completed from the beginning right to the end, and really gives students that sense of ownership, but also contributing to that ongoing incremental professional development as well. So students are seeing that professional development, that learning, and again, that increases confidence as well. So that, I suppose, is the support domain and how we use that within the Practice Learning Centre. I'm going to move on now to the Learn domain. And first off, when students come to yourselves within the Practice Learning Centre, we're very keen and passionate for students to learn from previous students who have walked that journey, who have completed that placement that they are now in, particularly within the voluntary sector. And we feel it's really important and really passionate that students hear these lived experiences of students who've already walked that journey and come through the other side as well. And we do this through our digital storytelling resources that students complete as part of their placement, and again as part of their peer learning bubble sessions with their peers. And that's so important for students to hear that lived experience of students, of what it was like from day one and what it was like then by the time they got to the end of their placement. And that can really help settle students into their placement and then to learn and embrace all the different challenges that will come as part of a placement journey as well. And within this domain, a real strength of the Learn domain is for students having that opportunity to hear that lived experience from experts by experience within those organizations, and the learning that comes from that as well. And students are engaged in within that and engaged with the experts by experience, and also in the application of our shared stories narrative model, and really the importance of listening to the lived experience of experts by experience who are involved with all the different agencies and organizations within the voluntary sector as well. It's also a real opportunity within this domain for students to learn about the voluntary sector and to also have a good understanding of all our voluntary sector agencies including the support that they provide to service users, so they can refer to those services throughout their placement, or indeed when they progress to their level 3, or when they progress then to their assessed year in employment. It's also an opportunity, and a great opportunity, to learn about the importance of multidisciplinary working and working with a range of different practitioners across different disciplines, but also the importance of the voluntary sector and that interface with statutory service as well is key learning within this domain as well. And as everyone on the webinar knows today, we're at very difficult, challenging times, and we're seeing that day in, day out. You know, we hear it on the media, we hear it on the news, we're hearing it from experts by experience. So particularly within this domain, there's a real opportunity for students to learn about the key issues and challenges that are impacting on communities, whether that be local communities, urban, rural communities, but really giving them an opportunity to learn about those core issues such as poverty, mental health, addiction issues, homelessness, but also more recently the impact on the cuts of services that are coming from the government and how these impact on the daily lives of service users. So there's a great learning experience for students within that, and again listening to the lived experience of experts by experience and on those impacts, and actually what does it mean for those individual experts by experience. And again within this domain, it's all about best practice and sharing experience, which contributes to the student experience on placement, but also to the learning and ongoing professional development for students. And within this domain as well, we have a key focus on the importance of community development approaches. That sits core within the voluntary sector, and through all the work that we do with the different organisations, agencies and service users, but also how we all work together collaboratively to meet the needs of service users, and also how to respond to crisis as and when it occurs as well. And within the learn domain, throughout the application of the peer learning bubble model, we've really looked at assessment, different assessment tools and frameworks, because there's not one assessment framework or tool that is used right across the voluntary sector. They're all very, very different, and that brings a lot of anxiety and worry about students, because they would often say to us in the session going, well, I don't know about that, I only know Unigenie, and I said I don't know any other assessment tool or assessment framework. So there's a real opportunity to learn of all the different assessment tools and frameworks that are used in each of the different specific voluntary sector organisations and agencies, and students learn that they have the skills that they can transfer then to any assessment framework, any assessment tool, and they feel confident in the skills that they're using to complete really robust needs and risk assessments in partnership with service users. And we really echo the importance of that within the peer learning bubble sessions, the importance of partnership working with service users and their voice and inclusion and participation within needs and risk assessment. And more recently, and I suppose that reflects, you know, Northern Ireland and the communities that we're living in, it's very more multicultural, more diverse. So we're seeing that students are learning about being more culturally competent and learning around cultural backgrounds such as values, beliefs, customs and behaviours, and this is something that is really important for social work practice going forward, given the diverse society that we're living in within Northern Ireland as well. So students are having those discussions within the learn domain, and they're learning from each other, learning around the importance of now being culturally competent and being able to respond and provide that support to service users. Within this domain as well, students learn self-reflection skills, which is so important for social work through your placement, but also as you progress then into your assessed year employment. And how we encourage students to learn their self-reflection skills. All our presentations that are completed within the online community of practice are recorded. Students are then individually shared their own presentation. So in their own time and a safe space, they can then review their presentation and reflect on their knowledge, skills and values as well, and trying to equip students to develop their self-reflection skills as well. And within, I suppose then within the peer learning bubble model, and particularly within the learn domain, there's a real opportunity for newly qualified practice teachers to develop their skills and providing constructive feedback to students within their peer learning bubble group as well, because as we know, that's a central and important role for practice teaching. So all the practice teachers facilitating the peer learning bubble model sessions have to provide constructive feedback to students on their presentations, on their work as well. And finally, within the learn domain as well, students are learning about the positive and negative indicators and differential statements for levels of practice learning for level 2 and level 3. They are learning about the different complexities from what's required from level 2 and how that changes from level 3. And we see that as a real strength. The students are recognizing how from level 2 what the expectations are for that, but how then they step up then for final year as well. So that's really important that they're seeing that and they're learning about that as well. And finally, more importantly, within the learn domain, students learn from each other, and that's a real strength within the peer learning bubble groups as well, that shared experience and that peer learning as well. And then moving on then to the participate stage, I suppose within this domain, this is where students participate in agreed action learning tasks, which are agreed in partnership with the students at every peer learning bubble session. So we have those discussions and we agree those tasks all together. And the ownership and expectation is that every student within the peer learning bubble group will participate in the agreed tasks as well. So as mentioned previously, students engage in online presentations. And this is really important because it's equipping students with the digital skills to become more familiar with their presentation style online, to be more confident, comfortable in using digital platforms and using the likes of PowerPoint to present their information in that safe space, that safe environment with their peers who they're building that community of practice and those relationships as well. So when we're within the participate domain, we are looking at key tasks for students to apply within their presentations. And to name a few, some of those look at the Collingwood model. We're looking at assessment in social work, not just only in the voluntary sector, but assessment as a whole, and then how that then can be tailored then within the voluntary sector. We're looking at risk assessment, risk management. We're looking at the social work role within the voluntary sector and what is that, and how does that differ from the social work role within the statutory sector. We look at group care. We look at community development approaches for social work, but also we look at equipping and developing and students to participate in those discussions around having a better understanding of the key support services and resources that are within the local community and developing that knowledge so that students can be instrumental in referring service users on to best meet their need within that time as well. And I suppose then within the participate domain, there is a real sense that students then also provide that peer feedback to the presentations that they've seen from their peers. And we use and some of you will be familiar with the feedback approach that we use. We use the 3 and 3 feedback approach, which is 3 strengths and 3 developmental areas. So students that have listened to a peer presentation will provide provide feedback on the presentation and also ask questions about the presentation as well, because that's really important to assist and to add to the learning within the peer learning bubble sessions as well. But also then within individual supervision, students will participate within individual supervision and bring the learning that they've got from the peer learning bubble to the individual supervision with their practice teacher. They will share the feedback that they receive from the peers. They will share the feedback from the practice teacher and facilitating the peer learning bubble. And they will talk through in supervision with their practice teacher. There's 3 strengths, there's 3 development areas, and work together then to look at building on the strengths, but also then looking at the 3 developmental areas for the next peer learning bubble session. So in a sense, it's adding to their learning needs, their learning plan throughout and within the peer learning bubble session as well. So the practice teachers facilitating the peer learning bubble sessions, they have a key role in facilitating the discussion, but also providing constructive feedback as well, using the 3 and 3 model of 3 strengths, 3 development areas. So again, you see we're using a consistent approach of providing feedback as well. And again, that really assists the learning and the participating. And again, all these domains are very interchangeable and are very fluid as well. So the students participate in learning tasks, which they do throughout from the beginning right through the end of the placement. These learning tasks are a great way to assess competence, but also to see that incremental learning, development and growth from the start of placement right through to the end. And one of the I suppose, really good pieces around those tasks are it's contributing and evidencing the 6 key roles and the 20 social work standards that are required to be completed for placement. So you're seeing that right the way through, and it's really good then to reflect back from the start of this, from being involved in the peer learning bubble groups sessions to where students are then, and to see their development within that over the course of their 85 days, or indeed their 100 days as well. And again, it's great evidence, but again, it's really good for students to see that growth and development as well. And then that brings me on then finally to the final domain of the peer learning bubble, which is the develop domain. And this is where, you know, from the duration of the placements and the progress and all the work that students have completed from engaging in the small peer learning bubble sessions, we see the students are developing in confidence using online platforms, and which has helped them to prepare and feel confident completing things like their interim assessment, because they feel confident to upload and share their screen, share their presentation, work through their presentation, and do it within the allocated time as set out in the interim assessment guidance of 10 minutes, because all the presentations that students complete are that fixed time at 10 minutes, and that is a real skill in itself, to complete a presentation and cover all the key points within that 10 minutes. So we're really seeing at the end of the placement that there is excellent development in digital skill development as well. And again, that is echoed within student feedback, and indeed you'll hear that from Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann when it comes to their presentations as well. We all know that presenting on an online forum is essential for progressing, particularly into the workforce and engaging with practitioners, professionals, but also with experts by experiences as well. Within the development domain, students are confidently applying theory to practice and using their communication skills to articulate the application of theory to their placement set to service users, and that is evident throughout the peer learning bubble as well. There's a good development in developing a deeper understanding of social work theory, including new theories that students might not have read before, or indeed theories that students may never have heard as well. So there's that exchange of information within the small groups, that peer learning, that peer experience. So students are learning from each other, and that goes right the way through the peer learning bubble model as well. But also on top of that, and then within the developed domain, students are developing a really good understanding of the core issues within communities that impact on social work practice. And they're seeing that, you know, from their peers. They're learning about that. They're learning about the impact of human rights. They're learning about inequalities. They're learning about social injustice. They're learning about discrimination. And that is really important for social work, that through being involved in the peer learning bubble sessions, students are articulating that, they're seeing it, they're exchanging that knowledge and information. And it's really adding to that learning experience for students on placement as well. From being involved in the peer learning bubble sessions, students are evidencing a really good understanding of social work values, how they sit to the fore of practice with exercise by experience with professionals, and also applying these to practice is a real strength for being involved in the peer learning bubble sessions as well. There's good development in students' reflective skills, which we all know is very important to be a social worker and to reinforce the importance of good practice and development. More importantly, it's really positive to see students are developing positive friendships from their peers, which they continue into their final placement or as they progress to the sixth year in employment. And that's really nice to see those relationships and developing as we go through the placement journey and being involved within the peer learning bubble sessions as well. And particularly working within the voluntary sector and providing robust social work placements within the voluntary sector, students are leaving their placement experience with a really good understanding of building relationships with services and agencies from the voluntary sector, but also the interface then of building relationships with statutory services as well. And that's really important to ensure good practice, best practice, but more importantly, to meet the needs of service users as well. So we're getting a real sense of that, and there's really good development within that, with students being involved in the peer learning bubble sessions as well. And then finally, within the development stage, there's a greater awareness among students of the importance of availing of support, that community of practice for progression. And that's really important as we move forward. into your assessed year in employment. And we know the pressures that are there, the demands that are there for the workforce, the difficulty in resources and funding. So that's really important, that students are walking away with the importance of knowing the avail of support and having that experience of being part of a community of practice and knowing how to avail of that support as well. And finally, as students come to the end of their placement journey with themselves within Bryson Practice Learning Centre and indeed within the voluntary sector, students have developed confidence in completing their evidence matrix. They're developing confidence to contribute to self-evaluation and reflection. And most importantly, students are seeing their development from the start of the placement, and they're mapping that journey right the way through to the end of placements. And that's really, really good to see as a practitioner, as a practice teacher, to see growth and development in students, that they're finishing their placement and progressing maybe to level 3 as a more confident student in social work practice, or indeed as they progress into their assessed year in employment. And that development is really key to make sure we're having really good high caliber students entering the workforce and being able to respond to the crisis and demands that we see on a daily basis for social work and for exercise experience. So I suppose that's the peer learning bubble, the mains in a nutshell. And a synopsis of how we apply this within the Practice Learning Centre. We also apply it with qualified practice teachers across the voluntary sector to provide that community of practice for practice teachers, because very similar to students, practice teachers can be maybe the only practice teacher within that organisation. So it's really reaching out to provide that support as well. So our peer learning bubble is bedded down into that support for practice teachers as well. But don't worry, I'm not going to get into that today because will take us on far too long. But I am now going to pass you over to, more importantly, to hear from Rachel around her experience. So I'm going to pass you over to Rachel and let her talk you through her experience of the peer learning bubble model with Bryson Care.
Okay.
Hi, Caoimhe, are you doing the slides?
Yeah, I'll do the slides. I'll move them on.
Could you go to the next one, sorry? So what work we completed. So we presented, as Caoimhe said, we would set the task. So 1 week would be, how assessment looks in your placement setting. So I was in a homeless hostel for adults. So I would, in my context, present how assessment would look, or how we apply anti-oppressive practice. So using the digital skills to feedback on how it looks from our service users perspective. And we discussed with each other too how our practices was developing, but we really seen how our digital skills improve, because from the start the idea of doing a presentation was just nerve-wracking, but we've seen as the weeks went on like how much we improved, and even like time management, how we did our slides, even our confidence in presenting. And we really seen it from everybody, and even give each other feedback and to receive it. We've seen how much that added to us. And I think it made us more confident too in our placement settings, to be more just confident with the service users, because it, as Caoimhe says, it was a form of reflection, and when you were saying it to your peers and like that safe space, it made you really think, oh no, that really worked well, I can keep improving in that, or even to admit, I tried this and it wasn't really working well. And I think if you didn't have that safe space and time to just really say it to your peers, you wouldn't have really kind of realised there and then. So that really added to the confidence too. And it really, so there were different tasks, as I said, how we reflect and what theory we applied and what interventions we would look. So, and as Caoimhe also said, we really learned from each other. So there was, I think from first year, sometimes social work writing can be so academic, it's really hard. Sometimes it can be quite off-putting. So you nearly say, like, you don't, when you're reading it, you don't want to apply it as much because you feel like you don't understand it. But hearing from each other and really having to say it in your own language, I felt like it only kind of clicked. And sometimes, like Emma would say a theory she was using, and I had never heard of it, but it just kind of went straight away because she was saying it. so conversationally and applying it in context to hers that we were able to use it and exchange our theories with each other. And it really made us think deeper about, you know, the human rights and social injustice, and really, you know, when you're in your own placement, you're only really thinking of yours, but hearing from each other's, it really give you a really deeper understanding. And I think it really has like massively helped me in my written work. You know, from first year, my marks have really improved after going back to university, because my understanding of the theory, it really clicked from speaking to each other. And again, I think it was such a useful tool to have that safe space to try it out, because when you're talking to your lecturers or you're talking to your supervisor, you nearly are like thinking about, you have to impress, you're thinking about your marks, but that was just, you were just talking to your peers and you were trying it out, and you wouldn't try it out in an assignment because you're thinking, well, I need to pass this, I need to think of the marks, and giving each other's feedback, it really helped. And it also, what that did for me was make me understand how much supervision is there to benefit you. So from being open and honest with your peers and gaining that confidence, it made me go to supervision with so much more confidence to go, right, I've been trying this, or you know, being really open and honest. And the more open and honest you are, the better feedback, the more advice, the more reassurance you're getting. So that really was just it. You know, you really develop personally in your own confidence and applying things and trying things just from, again, I keep saying it, but it really was a safe space to try that. Can I go to the next slide, Caoimhe, please? So I, again, just to try out things, and even, you know, if at the start when your presentation, the skills weren't that great, you know, you weren't really panicking, because it was just each other, and everyone was just so encouraging, because everyone is in the same position. We're all trying, and we all helped each other and give each other tips, you know, on the digital side. And like for everybody, you really seen how much it improved as the weeks went on, and that's skills that we can take with us now, you know. And again, the opportunity to reflect, you know, just there and then, and in a supportive way too, and to give each other that support. And so sometimes you could be hard on yourself, and then you're seeing it, you're from your peers that they're like, they were trying it, and you know, not everything works out, but you can give each other tips, and it, you know, it really, that was a really massive benefit. The biggest thing for me was the understanding the social work theory better, just again from being conversationally, and just the biggest thing I really seen from the other girls, and I felt it myself, was how much our confidence grew. And even things, you know, like for the midpoint review, see, they have done that the presentation a few times with your peers, it made you less nervous when the midpoint. So if I didn't have that opportunity, I just would have went on the midpoint really panicking. And when you do it once or twice, you'd be like, what are you worrying about so much? And even that thing, as I said, about the digital skills of like timings and how much your slides and that, you know, I just wouldn't have had any experience at that. So it really, it's really good skills. And even what I liked is learning the values from others. You know, they were in complete different settings with different service user groups, and what values that they applied. And it made me really think, you know, it's something I wouldn't have thought about, but to hear from them, and you know, and how they use it in context and how important it is. And again, everything you're learning, we've been able to take to our academic work, and I think it's improved. I can see how it's improved my marks, and I really in first year didn't think that I would have improved it in a year, you know. So I can see already the benefit of the peer learning and the confidence of applying the theory, which I just would have stayed away from. Can I go to the next slide, please? So I've been set to action learning tasks. It really made me understand the placement setting better, because I researched the policies just to be able to present them to the peer learning, made me really think deeper about it, and it increased my confidence. And even when I had to take phone calls from other agencies and represent the agency I was in, I felt like a much more confident representative of the setting. It prepared me for the two big assignments at the end, the reflection and the case study. Just from talking it out with the girls every week in the peer learning, whenever I went to do the assignments, I felt like I had this huge resource of all I just look back on all the work I did in the peer learning, and it was all there for me, and just doing it by bit, where sometimes when you go to do an assignment, you see it as this big, massive written thing and you don't know how to approach it, but it was there just, looking back. And I know I said it, but the biggest thing for me and the biggest thing I'm grateful for is how much it gave me the ability to apply theory to practice, which in first year was just such a massive struggle. But doing it in a peer setting and just being comfortable and confident with the girls and feeling really supportive to them just made that develop. And I don't think I would have been able to had I not that safe environment just to explore it and be open, and that grew as time went on. It wasn't there straight away, but we all just got more confident, and as presentations went on, that really developed, and that's something I'm really, really grateful for. Can I go to the next slide? I really feel like it was a form of self-care, because you just went in, and because it wasn't, it was just your peers in the same position, you just were able to be honest, and it felt like you just got your head showered and were able to, I've been, as I said, you can just be open and honest about things you've tried and things haven't worked well, and getting that feedback and encouragement from each other, and again, how it made me appreciate supervision more. It was non-judgmental, it was safe, and we really became a supportive network to each other, and we've all stayed in touch and still give each other that encouragement. And it made me understand social work in a bigger context because of learning of all their placements. And if I hadn't done that, I would have just been thinking about my own placement setting. So it was really good understanding, and I'm really, really grateful for it. So that's me.
Excellent. Well done. That was brilliant, Rachel.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Brilliant.
Just before we move you Sunday breakout rooms, because there's no such thing as having a webinar in the sunshine and being talked at for an hour and 10 minutes. So we thought we'd get you involved in the process as well. Is there any questions at this stage? Or is there anything you want to pop into the chat box? Are you happy enough to virtually be whisked off now into a breakout room for like six or 7 minutes so you can talk to one another? Absolutely, Alan. Well done, Rachel. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Great job. You can see your confidence. You're shining. You're just shining. Are you happy enough then to get whisked off into a virtual room for 5 or 6 minutes? Okay.
Does everyone know the question for the breakout room?
Oh.
So really the question is, because I know I've taken down the slides, so what are the potential benefits and opportunities of applying the model in practice learning or in a practice learning setting?
Well, did you enjoy that? Was that some crack in that breakout room there? Loving your best lives. These were loving your best lives, talking about the weather, the beach, etc., etc. Not to mention the peer learning bubble. Not one word. Not one word. No, I'm only messing. Is there any?
I have to say, Denise, it's overcast here in Banbridge, so I don't know what you're talking about. Sunshine. It's overcast.
I'm in Ballymena, and there's a few clouds in the sky, but I don't think Ballymena has realised I've arrived yet, so the sun's going to come out. No, once word spreads that I'm here, it'll be all good. So before we move on to Emma sharing her experiences, is there any feedback that you want to share with us from your breakout rooms, or any comments or suggestions or weather forecasts even of your locale? Is this me experiencing a virtual tumbleweed? I'm back. I'm having a flashback of trying to teach a social work degree during COVID to RGR1 students. This is what it was like.
Sorry, Denise. I suppose in our group, and I know Francis is here and there's a few other ones from our trust, but I think it's a good way of forward maybe for the student support. Yeah. I know the students, obviously we're in the statutory sector and there's 2 sessions where they meet together, and the feedback is, well, I got from my student was okay, but this I think is more relevant to what they need and the support that they can get off each other, because it can be quite isolating for people. And I know for you students as well, that's a thing. Some of them, I know we have no student at the minute as well and that has been real good to peer support. And it is different than what you get from your practice teacher or from your training team. It's a very different support mechanism.
Excellent, thank you very much.
And we were of the same view, Denise. We were, thought it's a very good model. Part of it is being used in the practice or the student support groups, but not specifically enough. And I don't think it matters how many. I was talking about a student that I had that was in mental health, and there was only one other student there, but we didn't monopolize that enough in terms of learning.
Yeah,
even in terms of their midpoint, that would have been a perfect opportunity. And it's only small numbers, but at least if we were applying it to the small numbers, that would be good. So I don't know.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Francis. Anybody else? Any comments or reflections before we hand over to Emma, our next student?
We just talked about the support for practice teachers as well, and how sometimes when workload is quite high, especially in those kind of early weeks of placement. We were doing supervision every week. This would kind of replace maybe like it's kind of peers, it's group supervisions, I suppose. So it could be divvied up between different practice teachers, and within the EA we would kind of have different practice teachers supervising different students. So it means, and it's different voices and different the students hearing from different practice teachers and different styles, and it just makes it up for the students. So I think it supports not only students but practice teachers as well.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you, Al. Thank you.
And I think, sorry, Denise, I think we'd also talked about in terms of even supporting assessment of students where, things are more kind of complex in whether a student is meeting their competencies, that gives you that extra kind of way of triangulation, doesn't it? That's the key bit, I suppose.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Guys, he's happy enough then if I hand back over to Emma McAllister, our lovely student from Queen's University, who's going to share her experiences with us.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So firstly, I'm just going to discuss then what work that I completed within the peer learning bubble. So again, just voicing what Rachel was saying, we had, weekly tasks, presentations and workshops. And I was part of an agency working with disabilities. And I found it so beneficial with our weekly tasks, because we would have case studies, with our service users, and each week I would have maybe picked someone different. And, as we are all aware, disability, it's so diverse and it's so complex, and what maybe works for one service user doesn't necessarily work for, the next one. And I found that, I reflected each week, and it was so beneficial, within the agency, working with, different individuals. Again, presentations, I found extremely beneficial, and the girls will laugh, but I have came from, my background, I'm self-employed. I was self-employed for 15 years. And I found, it quite daunting, even to share a screen, and it was that safe space where I could just, feel confident with the girls to say, look, give me a wee second. And it really did shape me up to the midpoint. I'm a whiz now, girls, I'm at the presentations. But again, another thing was timekeeping skills, which is obviously essential, the 10 minutes, it was a task and a half, because we've obviously so much to talk about, in regards to whether we were, talking about case study, theory to inform, theory to intervene, anti-oppressive practice. We had went through it all, and in such a small group, you felt like you were having your voice heard, and you felt like, there was no judgment there. Also, the last thing was the workshops. We had done a few workshops, which were particularly beneficial to me in that setting, and it was advocacy, reflecting, and also in endings. And do you know what? Again, with the small group, you just were getting, you know, your voice heard, and you were having, you weren't really scared to voice your opinion, you know, because I've been in bigger groups where, you know, there's maybe, you know, 15 to 20 people, and there's not really the time, you know, and sometimes as well online, with the lapse in time, you know, you can't really have a conversation as freely as you could in person with such bigger groups. So I thought with, you know, the 4 or 5 of us, we all got our say. So what did I like about the peer learning bubble sessions? I found, again, and I can't stress enough as a student voice, that it was such a safe space. When you're going into a setting, you know, I mean, I am a mature student, but I couldn't imagine going into a setting maybe at 18, 19. It is quite daunting. But I found, you know, if you had any issues within placement, because, you know, issues arise from time to time, or any discrepancies you had, any problems, I looked forward to that weekly session because I felt like there was no judgment there. And, you know, when you're going into an agency, the teams are already formed. Yes, you are part of the team as a student, but I think sometimes the student feels that you're not, you know, you're only going to be there, you know, for that short period of time. And I found that, you know, not that there would be any judgment within the agency, but it was just nice to have that space, you know, with Caoimhe and the girls to ask, you know, and to voice my opinion, or ask for maybe just, you know, their opinion. Was I doing the right thing? Or, you know, so just that backup, and it's completely non-judgmental. Again, we had all touched on this slightly, but building up the digital skills, something that, you know, a few of us do find quite hard when we're coming back from, you know, being off studying for, you know, a long period of time. Definitely enhanced my confidence. Again, even whenever I had talked it over within that hour each week, I felt like I was refreshed. I felt like it was a breath of fresh air. I could go back into my agency and chat more freely and more confidently. And I was also very confident in discussing things with the girls online, in that safe environment, because there was only the 4 of them, and we actually began to build up, you know, a friendly rapport. You know, if there was any issues, we would actually probably, you know, contact each other, you know, even outside of that. We became friendly, you know, especially me and Rachel would go into the conference with the girls back in February. So it was really lovely to you know, meet up and discuss, you know, how placement was going. You just kind of feel like, you know, you're not on your own. Next slide, Caoimhe, please. So how did the peer learning add to my learning on placement? Do you know, the frequent sessions were great, because any issues that came up that arose, I was able to get a second opinion with Caoimhe and the girls. I also like the fact that we all were in different settings. So going forward, you know, with my next placement, I have a wee bit of knowledge then on, you know, what maybe if something, you know, happened, or if you're working with in a different setting, this is what, you know, such and such had done, and it was a good idea. You're learning an array of knowledge constantly, and, you know, your voice is heard because it's such a small setting, it's such a small intimate group. And again, you build up that confidence in the 4 months. And to be honest, I actually quite miss it, you know, when you're back at Queen's, because you're kind of on your own. You know, you have your, you know, your big lectures and your small tutorial groups, but again, it's quite fast paced. And I thought that, you know, we covered so much within the space of that hour. You know, every topic was covered, and really, just to voice what Rachel had said, I did at the start struggle with the different types of assessment. And, you know, when it came to my assignments at Christmas, we had already discussed so much with assessment, and I had so much wrote down that I felt like when I was going, you know, forward and sitting there after a placement, you know, you're not at university, placement stops, and you're kind of in a no man's land of all this work to do. But, you know, who do I turn to? There was always Caoimhe, you know, and I just thought everything that I had discussed in that space, I used all that. And that's why I got the great marks, Caoimhe. So thank you. Thanks very much.
Last slide you need to talk about, and we put it in there. It's a really great achievement. And I wouldn't do it justice, but that is just amazing. So I'm going to let you summarize that.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised. I'm not going to lie, but it was, you know, a nice wee lift, if I'm honest, after completing the end of year exams. But yeah, I was put forward for the student level 2 citizenship award, and didn't think I was in a chance to receive it at all. But you know what, I really want to thank Denise and Caoimhe, because they gave me the opportunity to speak with them and to come on board, you know, with the peer learning. And I just thought that obviously there were so many people there, and my tutor at Queen's had said, you know, that you did us proud. You like to talk. I think you obviously have realized that now within the past 5 minutes. And you know, it just was a nice little lift to get recognized, I suppose. So
well
thank you for putting me on the spot.
Well deserved, Emma. You earned it on your own merit, so well deserved. So thank you, Emma, for your contribution today. It's been really good, and I know it's been really great to share your experience as well. So thanks a million, Emma, and good to see you as well.
Thank you so much, girls. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well done. So we're thinking we might skip this breakout room because we all love to talk so much. We want to give Leslie Ann an opportunity as well to share her experience participating in the peer learning bubble as an Open University student, and then we'll reach for a bit more feedback from yourselves if people are happy enough to do that, because it really, you know, it's really the students and their experience that brings this to life, and it takes it off the page and off the infographic, and how they experienced it, and what they learned from it. And what challenged them by it. So if people are happy enough, we'll hand over to Leslie Ann. Leslie Ann will say 5 minutes to go through and share your experience, if that's okay.
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm going to cover is really just reiterating what the girls have previously said regarding the work that we completed within our peer learning bubble, and how beneficial I felt it was throughout, you know, the different modules that we were studying at the time, and also the placement. So the 3 presentations that we covered within the peer learning bubble were the purpose of assessment, the Collingwood model applying theory to practice, and then endings in social work. And I would say this learning is probably the most enjoyable aspect of the peer learning group for me. I loved the fact that when we looked at assessment, the students within my bubble were all in different settings. Some were working with family and children, others were working with adults. I specifically was working in mental health, which was very different to the other students in the group. So it was really helpful for me to learn about the different assessments that were being used, either in the voluntary sector or in the trust. And it was also really lovely to hear the feedback that I got from my presentation, that although I talked for far too long, which I always do, it was really nice to hear that, you know, even the students were like, you know, so much about mental health and the area that you're working in. So I think that really improved and helped my confidence when it came to doing the pieces of work and the assignment, that, you know, you do have a good understanding and grasp of assessments and the theory that informs practice. So that was really beneficial. And also, I think one of the girls, Emma, was maybe saying there, hearing about the different assessment models that are used specifically with children. I haven't worked with children for over 20 years, so it was really lovely to hear how those assessment models incorporate family and children and work with a number of people to improve outcomes for children. I also really enjoyed the Caoimhe model, and it was probably one of the ones that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but again, applying the theory to a different service user. So we all picked a different service user that we were supporting. And I think that really demonstrated the level of complexities that we were all dealing with in the different placements. And it allowed us to see and to learn that, you know, there's not one theory or one approach that fits that client group or that person. And I really learned so much from the Caoimhe model, from listening to the other girls. And we looked at theories like systems theory, attachment, ecological, and then it helped us identify theories to support your interventions. So like person-centered approach, recovery model, and relationship based social work were some of the theories that I included. And again, that was really, really important for me when it came to doing the assignments, because I had all of those notes and all of that research done. So I felt more confident and going ahead and doing that piece of work because I had a lot of information already there that I'd covered within the presentation. What I really enjoyed about this was learning about the legislation and the social work skills and values. What you find is when you're doing the assignments, regardless of, you know, if it's social work law or if it was the social work practice, your legislation skills and values are always filtering through every piece of work. So again, it was really important to hear the different students' points of view on skills and what they were applying, when they were using it, or ethical issues or dilemmas that they were facing. And the legislation, I learned so much from the different pieces of work that we did. And I suppose that's what I really enjoyed about it. It was spending that time with your peers and learning and gaining that knowledge and being able to take notes about maybe a piece of legislation that they had talked about that I was unaware of. And I found that really, really beneficial whenever I was doing my assignment with the children. They provided additional support. So as the girls have said, you know, you had a really small group of people. And it was a safe space that you could discuss any issues with your placement, and we could share, you know, just different suggestions or ideas, and learning about other services. I really love that aspect of it because you tend to get caught up in your own, and you tend to then maybe sometimes feel comfortable. Like I really felt comfortable in adult health and social care services. And I know next year I'm going to be in a family and childcare placement. So it was really lovely to hear the other girls' experiences and how much they were enjoying actually working with families and young children. And then just really going over and reinforcing what I've already said. So they provide a greater understanding of how the theory informs everyday practice within your placement, but also other students. And we were all able to give each other feedback on the information that was shared. Different points of view from peers regarding their assessments and endings and approaches. So again, it was good to hear other people, you know, they'd maybe looked at a piece of work or a theory and they took a completely different meaning. And you were thinking, you know, God, maybe I should be looking at this a different way, which was really good. And then more opportunities, again, because of the small group and the safe space to explore other people's experiences of placement, and also how they were doing just within the degree. So that's me.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Leslie, and that was brilliant. So thank you for sharing your experience of, you know, being involved in the peer learning bubble sessions for your placement. So thank you. That was fantastic. And thank you to Emma and Leslie, and that has been really good contribution. So thanks a million. We really appreciate it.
Okay, happy days. These are amazing. you're all tough act to follow. Hey, the pressure's on now. So literally a couple more key points. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the squirrels and the Galgorm as well. So I'm trying to stay focused. So Caoimhe and I are currently involved in a research project, redesigning and developing the peer learning bubble model through learning collaborations with placement providers, service users, and social work students in Northern Ireland. So this is we got ethical approval for this back then in September time. So we're going to run evaluations longitudinally for 3 placement cycles. So we've just collected the data for the placements that have just finished. Then we'll go again in August and then again in January. So I mean, if you are interested in getting involved or trying it out, you know, Belinda or Francis, if you're wanting to try it out as well and get involved, then do get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to share information that we have or give some ideas as well. Next slide, please, Caoimhe. So just briefly in terms of summarising some of the workshops that we've already completed with the students, and you get a sense of that already from the excellent presentations that Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann have delivered during this webinar. You know, it's a more personal learning experience. The small numbers are really, really critical to that experience. Sustainability as well. Students are constantly speaking to us around cost of living challenges. So doing this online meant that there was no travel involved. You know, it became an extension of supervision and very much a non-judgmental learning environment and a rich learning environment. And again, that's reflected in the knowledge that each of the students has shared with you. And, you know, quid pro quo, because they were getting information as well. It was contributing to evidence in the 6 key rules and the social work standards. Students, as you can tell and you can see from the presentations that they've all delivered during this webinar, they became much more strategic as learners, and that cross-pollination of ideas and making theory into practice more accessible, and realising, you know, Leslie Ann has all this knowledge of mental health and an extensive experience as a practitioner. You know, utilise that as a resource to build your own knowledge up and V in terms of working in family and childcare and so on. Crucially as well, learning about different job roles and signposting for resources. And I think if you're thinking about this for AYE as well, it's not always about having, you know, huddling, you know, newly qualified social workers together from one particular team or one particular setting. This cross-pollination and working across contexts, I think, is a rich learning environment. Sometimes there was Wi-Fi access issues and placements, and that was problematic, but nothing is unsurmountable. And again, increasing confidence with the students, and you see that today. Next slide, please. So, as we'd mentioned at the start at 12 o'clock, which seems like so long ago, you know, whilst we have been focusing on primarily using this with social work students in level 2 and level 3, you're starting to see that there's value within this in terms of looking at assessed year and employment as well for newly qualified social workers. I mean, we all know how important those formative years are in practice for newly qualified social workers. It's important for retention, it's important for confidence, it's important for their consolidation of their knowledge as well. And as employers and as academics and as students that are, you know, will be entering under the profession, you know, we're aware of the challenges in terms of recruitment and retention, and the importance of looking for creative and innovative ways to offer that support to newly qualified social workers to continue to build their confidence, to consolidate their skills and their knowledge. You know, you've heard today from Rachel, Emma and Leslie Ann. These are 3 students from 3 different higher education institutions on what worked for them as a valued member of a peer learning bubble within Bryson Practice Learning. So, you know, the coronavirus has impacted the ways in which social work education and placements have been delivered, but it has created new opportunities. And for us, when we're thinking about, you know, how this could be transferable to looking at supporting staff and colleagues throughout the profession in Northern Ireland, it's around that model to support ongoing professional participation and membership, feeling a part of something. If we think back to the support domain, feeling a part of something in a community of learning and practice, and, you know, that transition from final year student being newly qualified social worker, and then underlining all that, continued professional development and the professional and practice pathways. So we've no more time to do a breakout room. I can see that people are having to leave now and head because we've almost used up all of our time. But if we're just reaching out to you now and show of hands or in the chat box, do you feel now that you have a better understanding of the peer learning bubble model and how it can be used to enhance learning, provide support and promote development within social work placements? So I'll see now where we go. Yep. Is this me in a virtual tumbleweed? Am I talking to myself now? Don't believe in me talking to myself?
No.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
There's lots of good comments, Denise, coming into the chat box as well. It's
brilliant.
Just showing, people are saying definitely, absolutely, yes, yes. So really good, positive.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One last slide, Kiva, one last slide then, just for people, if there you go. If you're interested in learning any more about it, or you want to chat to Kiva and myself in relation to model or trying it out within your own work setting, you can read the journal article, which is where it all began. You can contact us. Our details, our emails are there. Also, Degree Partnership website has been very supportive, and the infographic is available there. There's no charge. There's no copyright issues. It's free to share. People share and care and spread the word about the model and enjoy it. If there's such a thing as enjoying a theoretical concept. Maybe I've been at Ulster for too long, and that's okay too. So listen, Rachel, Emma, Leslie Ann, thank you so much. Everybody that has turned up today and stayed with us for the hour and 23 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. And we hope you've enjoyed the session. I have to sign off now and go and get my lunch in the Galgorm. Don't hit me.
It's a hard life.
It's a hard life.
Rachel and Emma and Leslie Ann, thank you so much for coming along and the lovely Wellers also. Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming along. We've really enjoyed sharing our learning peer bubble. So thank you everyone.